And I'm also have been telling you that death, just like what I've been reporting to you right now, is becoming more and more out in the open. And here we have an army releasing images showing the moment a mortar tube accidentally exploded during live fire training in Afghanistan, which killed the photographer, specialist Hilda Clayton, only 22 years old, who was a visual information specialist. She was documenting the training, and the blast killed her and 4 Afghan National Army soldiers. So again, we're closer to seeing death happen, and now we're saying it's acceptable. In fact, they made her a hero. They named an award after her, and of course her family and the unit approved the release of the photographs. But personally, I don't think we need to see pictures of death and destruction and then praise it for happening. In Alaska, you also might have heard about 2 Russian Bear bombers who entered Alaska's air defense zone. Apparently, they were intercepted by a pair of U.S. Air Force F-22 stealth fighter jets that were already flying a patrol near Alaska. It was the first time the U.S. Air Force has seen advanced Russian Su-35 fighter jets escort Russian Cold War-era bombers near Alaska. However, it does say that the Russian fighter jets were unarmed and remained in international airspace. So why did they need the escort? I'm not exactly sure. Apparently last month, Russian bombers flew near Alaska over 4 consecutive days for the first time since 2014, and apparently they just did it again. So again, if they're in international airspace and it's legal, I don't know why we have to escort them off. But they're reporting that, I guess, to instill more fear in you. Now, this report is also interesting to me that it's going around recently because it's an ongoing issue. And this is people in China. Supposedly, they are murdering their prisoners and then harvesting their organs. So, apparently there is a report out by former Canadian lawmaker David Kilgour, human rights lawyer David Mattis, and journalist Ethan Gutmann. And in this report, they blame the Chinese government, the Communist Party, the health system, doctors, and hospitals for being complicit. The Communist Party says the total number of legal transplants is about $10,000 per year. However, this report estimates that there are 60 to 100,000 organs transplanted each year in Chinese hospitals. And according to their report, the gap is made up of executed prisoners, many of them prisoners of conscience, locked up for their religious or political beliefs. China does not report its total number of executions because it regards that as a secret. Beijing claims that since the beginning of 2015, China has moved from almost completely relying on organs from prisoners, so they're admitting that, to the largest voluntary organ donation system in Asia. That's what they're saying. Now, here in the U.S., I'm going to tie this together for you in just a minute, but I want to also report that back in 2013, when Angelina Jolie had her double mastectomy, I reported at the time, I really don't think that she had one, but I said, now you watch, now women will get their breasts removed because this is what Angelina Jolie did, and then they can use the healthy breasts, which in my opinion they would have been healthy, to study the female hormone system. So now we have a new report, believe it or not. Stanford University found that doctors are misunderstanding genetic tests. And they say that that double mastectomy skyrocketed after Angelina's 2013 op-ed, which I told you what happened. And they found that half the women who were told that they had cancer-causing genes had them, and the other half did not. So they had their removal of both breasts, but they didn't necessarily need to have them removed, which is exactly what I told you. The researchers warn that while genetic testing is more accessible, it's getting more complicated to understand. So keeping in mind the organ harvesting, now we've got the mastectomies, which were unnecessary, which in my opinion was harvesting of healthy breast tissue from women. Moving on to India. Okay, in India, the citizens do not have absolute right over their bodies, says the government. Apparently, the center told the Supreme Court on Tuesday of last week that citizens could not claim absolute right over their body parts and refused to give digital samples of their fingerprints and iris for Aadhaar enrollment. The Attorney General said, quote, "The concept of absolute right over one's body was a myth, and there are various laws which put restrictions on such a right." His assertion came in response to a clutch of petitions challenging the constitutional validity of Section 139AA of the Income Tax Act, which provides for mandatory mention of Aadhaar while filing income tax returns and applying for a PAN number from July 1st of this year. The Center said after the passage of the Aadhaar Act that it has become mandatory for citizens to get the unique identity number. It's kind of like our Social Security number here in the U.S. Originally, it wasn't mandatory. Now you have to have it if you want a job, and so on and so forth, and you needed to file your tax return, so they tell you one thing and then they do something else. Remember, focus. Focus is very important where they focus you. The Attorney General contended that the right over one's body was not absolute, as the law prohibits people from committing suicide, and women were barred from terminating their pregnancy at an advanced stage. And if people had an absolute right over their body, then people would have been free to do whatever they want with their body. But the law did not recognize the absolute right of people over their bodies. He says, if such a right existed, then committing suicide would have been permitted. People would be allowed to do whatever they wanted with their bodies. The right not to have bodily intrusion is not absolute, and the life of a person can also be taken away by following a due procedure of law. People cannot commit suicide and take drugs. He also said people are required to allow police to measure their breath for alcohol content in drunken driving cases. He said no consent was required to get samples of blood and fingerprints of an accused criminal, and there was nothing wrong if Aadhaar was used as a preventive measure to curb tax evasion and black money by linking it to the PAN card. The hearing also saw the Attorney General emphasizing that the just-passed Aadhaar Act has changed the nature of the unique identity scheme from voluntary to mandatory. Now remember, these things I'm telling you, it's in India, but it doesn't matter. They start extrapolating this worldwide. The government had so far maintained that Aadhaar was not compulsory, just like our Social Security number. It was voluntary for residents to get a unique identity number to get benefits of various social welfare schemes linked with Aadhaar. The Attorney General told the Apex Court that Section 7 and 54 of the Aadhaar Act made it mandatory for people to get enrolled. He refuted the allegation that people would be under the government's surveillance if Aadhaar was made mandatory. It is not meant to track anyone. The purpose is not to create Uncle Sam who will keep snooping. It is meant to make India a tax-compliant society and ensure that the benefits of welfare schemes reach the poor. He said Aadhaar is the most advanced identification program and is foolproof. He said people could not claim to have the right to be forgotten by refusing to get an identification proof like Aadhaar. Even if you want to be forgotten, the state is not willing to forget you, he said. So I find this very interesting because they're still moving forward that first of all you have right over your body and then you don't have a right over your body. So that is going to happen whether you're a prisoner of war, whether you live in India, whether you live in the US, it doesn't matter. They are continuing to bring everything under one world order, one new world order, whether it is the Pope talking about the mother, whether it is about these people saying about organ harvesting, it doesn't matter. Whether you have to get an identification number, it's here. And they're saying you don't have the right. So the next thing, what if they tell you have to be chipped? Right now people are doing it voluntarily. They think it's kind of cool, but at some point they might tell you that, hey, you've got to have the chip. And then moving on to Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking is saying that humans must flee Earth within the century. Now remember what I tell you. First of all, they'll say, oh, so many years in the future, and then, so many years in the future, and it gets closer and closer. Oh, it's today. Well, apparently, he was claiming that humans have 1,000 years left on Earth. Now he's claiming humans have 100 years left. Then he says we will need to jump ship as Earth is overwhelmed by overpopulation, climate change, disease, and artificial intelligence. BBC's show Expedition New Earth will explore technological and scientific advances that will enable life in space or a colony on another planet. It will show that Hawking's ambition is not as fantastical as it sounds. The science fact is closer to science fiction than we ever thought. Columnist Eric Mack says that Hawking needs to give his head a shake if he honestly believes Mars, the Moon, or anywhere else in our solar system will be more hospitable than Earth even after a host of disasters. Just cleaning up our own mess and starting over by rising from the rubble seems more practical, unquote. And also, he claims, more affordable than figuring out how to grow food or survive radiation poisoning on Mars. He continues to say the solution to all of our problems is here on Earth, yet somehow the grass is always greener for people even when it's on a dead red planet, unquote. So first of all, 1,000 years from now we have to leave the Earth. Now 100 years, they could say, 10 years we have to be gone. And as I've told you about many times before, all this is fear-based. The Earth can definitely support this population. All of the things they're telling you about climate change and the environment, all of it is a big lie to keep you in fear. And a lot of people are believing it, and there are a lot of people living in fear these days. There's no reason for that. You should get stronger, and that is what will protect you. Speaking of outer space, Justin Trudeau wears Star Wars socks to a meeting. Now on May 4th, apparently, was Star Wars Day, which I didn't know, but I do now. And so it was going all over the internet, May the 4th be with you, of course, as a wordplay instead of May the Force be with you. And then Trudeau, it says, was not the only famous face to publicly acknowledge the holiday. Now they're calling it a holiday. So pretty soon I bet you they'll have one. Kelly Ripa, Ryan Seacrest. The following day, May 5th, has come to be called Revenge of the 5th. So I will tell you why they're doing this. That is because of Green Star programming and activating you. So if you don't know what the brown merger archetype is, if you don't know about the self-reintegration, then you need to get Hyperspace Plus. You need to get Healing Archetypes and Symbols. Right on the front here is the brown merger self-healing archetype. Here's a protection. There's a lot of symbols here. This one means happiness. There's one for wealth and money, new beginnings, power, communication, family, you name it. It's all in here. How to open up your DNA, how to read your DNA, how to get your programming off of your DNA, how to have better relationships, all kinds of things here. Dolphin frequency, if you want to communicate with the dolphins, how to expand what you're doing, how to balance your mind, all kinds of things in this book. So you don't have to be affected by it. So Healing Archetypes and Symbols, Hyperspace Plus also talks about those things. If you have not read our books on programming, 13 Cubed, I read you the signs in the back of this. Okay, and if you're interested in knowing specifics, we do a programming scan for you to give you a place to start for you personally. We give you 5 programs that are active within you and how to deactivate them, what you can do. So the True Reality of Sexuality, 13 Cubed, both of those will teach you how not to succumb to the programming. Those are programming triggers. And speaking of programming triggers, my last story is about a person who says, I consider myself trans species. I've told you about this as well. This is a young man, 25 years old, who became obsessed with L's after having been bullied as a child. Now, he is in the process of transforming himself into an elf. He spent over 25,000 pounds already on plastic surgery, including full body hair removal, skin bleaching, and eye coloring. And it cost him 4,000 pounds a month to keep himself looking this way, apparently. And he hires himself out as an elf. He says he doesn't really care if people look at him. In fact, he almost likes that, and he's going to continue until he's fully transformed into an elf. He has surgery planned to make his ears pointed, hair implants for a heart-shaped hairline, a limb lengthening operation to make him 6 foot 5 inches tall. He sells cosplay merchandise, and he says, quote, I want to be an elf, an angel, and a fantasy being. My aim is to look inhuman, ethereal, graceful, and delicate. One programmed individual, okay? Basics, if you don't know Hyperspace Oversoul work, it's time you learn. The Hyperspace Helper, very small book, packed filled with information to help you, decoding your life, same thing, universal law. This will teach you what to do with yourself, and it is designed, this course, to teach you how to be your own teacher. Nobody can heal you. Nobody can do your work for you. You have to do it yourself. This will help you. If you need guidance, Stuart and I are here. But we tell you to do as much as you can, as far as you can, as fast as you can, because everything that's happening out there is designed to trip you up, to trigger you, and to put you in a bad place. We want to put you in a good place so you are in charge of you and nobody else can be in charge of your own mind. Okay? I also want to tell you that my Italy trip is now closed, and so I will be leaving the first part of June for that trip. I'm looking forward to walking the ancient paths of the Waldensians. Again, if you're not familiar with Waldensian Valdese history, this is the book for you. And I will also tell you then that in June, Stuart will be on the island of Nevis in the Caribbean. That lecture is open to the public. You will find information about that on our website. July, and we're still putting that one together. We have a one-day seminar on Long Island. That will be July 8th. So if you're in the area and you want to attend, we'll have interesting information for you there. Then in September, our September Spectacular, where we will be updating you on all of our latest research. We will be talking about the Magdalene frequency, the Emmanuel frequency, all these things I'm telling you about here in further detail. In October, that is our Big Bend and Carlsbad Caverns National Parks Tour. We will be going to Roswell, White Sands. We'll be starting the trip in El Paso, Texas. We will be traveling through New Mexico and then winding back at El Paso, and of course going into the inner earth in the Carlsbad Caverns, amongst other things. So lots of interesting things. Again, we have information on the website. People are signing up for that. We have a way for you to get in touch with us wherever you are in the world. So remember to like our Facebook pages, share this podcast with all your friends, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like, as I mentioned, like our Facebook page, we're now giving you an 8% discount. So if you want that programming scan and you're already a member, you can put that 8% on top of your membership discount. So if you want information, we have it for you in a variety of shapes and forms, wherever we are in the world. So I look forward to hearing from you, hopefully on my daily blogs. That's where we do our most in-depth work, is with our membership. And I look forward to seeing you. So take care until next week when Stuart will be here to join me again. Bye-bye.